Welcome to Iron Sights. This podcast candidly seeks to create opportunities and deliver impact by sharing the experiences and wisdom of successful entrepreneurs and thought leaders who unapologetically aim to win in health, fitness, business, and life. I'm your host, Scott Howell. Welcome to Old School Meets New School, tradition meets innovation, and imperfection meets excellence. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. Today, I have a very good friend of mine, and it's been a very long time. We're going to catch up on how long it's actually been because I can't even remember. My good friend, Dr. Justin Brink, who is one of our go-to chiropractors here in San Jose, but he's been a go-to for a lot of people. We'll talk about him today and all the great stuff he brings to the table. Justin Brink, welcome to Iron Sights.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've been listening to you for a while, and now it's a pleasure to be on.
I'm stoked to have you here. I missed you, dude. Like
Everyone's in hiding.
I know it's been, we've been in passing. I think we've seen one another in the last year though. Well, this year, 2021, I'm doing some math. We hosted, John Ruson's PPSC here, and you were there for that, for that weekend. I think that was February. Yeah. And then I know I came over and saw the new facility, which we'll talk about here in a second. Probably in the spring, maybe a couple months after that.
Yeah, probably a few because we were selling a bunch of equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like we bumped into one another over the summer at the Vori Grand Open.
Right.
With the Mind Pump Boys and God, and everybody else was there too. Right. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's weird because usually we'd see one another much more frequently.
Right.
Dude, great to have you back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did have an office in here too, so.
Yeah, that's true. Well, again, that goes back to right there pre-COVID, right? Again, kind of one of the casualties of this whole thing. And at the end of the day was we used to have representation from Premier Spine and Sport here. And things have changed. Things are definitely different.
That they are.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world.
Yeah, but we haven't stopped cross-pollinating businesses, which is something we'll talk about today, kind of how we've done that and how we've been successful and why I appreciate you for sure and the things that you bring to the table. But I mean, that's kind of leading into, we've done quite a bit of work together. Right. We've hosted workshops together. We've been to workshops together, been in the same classroom together. Right. We've had your chiropractors here at our office, been treated by you. We've met you. I mean, it's been a really good relationship, strong relationship along the way. We've gotten to know one another sort of personally and professionally, and hoping I can learn a little bit more about you today. I'm trying to remember when we first met.
Years ago.
It was a long time ago.
Right.
A long time ago. I think maybe the Mind Pump guys may have made that initial connection, but I'm not sure.
Them or even Bryce that teaches Eldoa that we were looking at hosting an Eldoa course here or Mind Pump, either or. And I think that's and then doing like FRC stuff up at Mind Pump as well. Then saying, hey, if you guys want to join in, come up. We're just half a mile up the road.
It goes back to some educator, right? Or some great coach or group of coaches somewhere. And I think that is the common bond. Right. And that's something that, I've always been impressed by, and talk a little bit about kind of how you represent your business and so forth. But one of the things that I know about you is that you're in the classroom constantly. Right. Like it's nonstop. Every month, it seems, I see or hear about you being in some kind of new educational process or workshop, or you're getting your hands literally onto something, learning the next thing.
Got to get dirty.
Right. But not everybody does that.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people go through, they get through school. We'll talk a little bit about your history here, but they get through school and they go through the kind of the mandatories. Right. I got to do this to maintain, or this new thing came out that might make me some money, so I'm going to go to do that. But that's not how you've handled yourself at all.
No, for me, it is more, I feel like education is always there and you can never stop learning, and so for me, always, what's the next thing that's out there? Or, I mean, again, I've hosted Eldoa, I don't know how many times, and FRCs and, the animal flows and stuff like that. And I'll always go back to taking the basic course again and again and again, because I can always take something away from it, and I'm never going to be an expert because I'm always trying to learn. So
that constant learning that you do also puts you in a position to be a contributor to the learning. And that's, I think, really powerful. And when we have, Palmer Chiropractic right here in town, right? And I know that one's close to you, but the Palmer students know about Justin Brink,
right?
And because you've been active, or there's things that you've done that they're exposed to, even, you know, in their current curriculum, or they get exposed to it through maybe some clinical hours they might be spending with another chiro somewhere. I think actually maybe the first time I heard about you was going back to 2013, maybe. We're going back to like the Kinesio tape days with Rocktape.
Right.
And I know you actually were part of, interesting that you were a co-writer in terms of the Rocktape manual.
Yeah, the manual, and then helped me, and at that time it was Steve, well, still is, but Steve Capobianco.
Mm-hmm.
So we developed the whole education course, and like the very first course that we taught was in Los Gatos to pretty much all of our friends,
right.
You know, and I can remember some of them going, "You're not going to sign my certificate."
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, I know. Well, 2013 is, so we're going back, what was that, 8 years ago or something like that, or close to it. I mean, that was like, excuse me, that was the cutting edge. I mean, the tape thing was just coming around. Right. And it got very big, sort of very fast, but it was endorsed by, and this is what impressed me about it, because at first, I'll be honest, I was like, come on, man.
Tape.
Like, tape to me was prophylactic tape, right? Like, it's like, or it's stabilization tape. That's what I grew up with. It's kind of tape I grew up with. Or it was duct tape, you know, to just hold your shit together. In this case, it took a different, it came with a lot of different new, theories, right? And there was a different philosophy to it. But the thing that turned me on to it was like, okay, I got to look into this more, was essentially the endorsement by Thomas Myers, who wrote Anatomy Trains, which for you coaches or chiropractors or practitioners, if you don't know about Anatomy Trains, you're not paying attention. Get on Amazon right now and order it. It's an amazing book. This shit will blow your mind.
It's good.
And it blew my mind because it just made sense.
Right.
And, you know, lo and behold, here we are at whatever it is. I think you wrote that book maybe 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, again, he recognized the value of that. And again, just being a lifelong learner can quickly turn you into an educator.
Right.
But the fact that you never stopped and you never kind of sat on your laurels with one thing always impressed me about you. And it's always good being in the same classroom with you, because we're peppering the instructors with
always
with the questions and the practical application. But what if? But these are real life things that were you know, stuff. So it was always very helpful for me. Anyhow, how long have you been a chiropractor?
December 2006 is when I graduated.
Right.
Yeah. So 15 years.
Yeah, you're a vet now.
That's right.
And you got it. You know, my experience with you is you work with a very diverse population of people and clients. And, you know, our experience in terms of my professional kind of cross-pollination of business would be basically with general pop, you know, just folks that have something that needs to be addressed that's outside the scope of what we can help them with, but something that we've recognized is, I think you could use some help here. And it would be really nice to understand maybe at a deeper level what is going on there, and maybe get some outside help so that we can augment your training program. And then back and forth. And hey, here's what's happening. Here's how this, you know, here's how we can work with this client together. But also you work with a lot of athletes too, over the years. Maybe talk a little bit about that. Who, you know, I know there's been some MMA, there's been some triathlon, any level of athletes from high school to professional. From your high school level all the way through professional level,
you know, from fighters to NFL players to hockey players, soccer. I mean, Ironman, you know, triathletes, and, you know, professional cyclists, professional runners. Sort of covered a little of everything. Yeah. Which is interesting, because I find a lot of either coaches or even practitioners, they just kind of like, well, this is my wheelhouse, and I need to focus and market to this particular market segment, if you will, to be successful. But you've been able to kind of keep your hands in everything. I think the education piece and the constantly exploring speaks to that. It all started with the MMA. I mean, that was, you know, the clinic that I initially started at. They treated a lot of the guys from AKA. And so then I just was in there, and I had been there for, I think it was about 4 years. And so then as I was treating them, you know, you start seeing a lot of the same behaviors, you know, from them, or same injuries, you know, that they just getting. Like everything, you know, getting kicked in the knee or shin, or kicked in the head. I mean, you're going to get whiplash all the time, or low back injuries. And, you know, again, it sort of depends on what style that they were. You know, more jits guys, you know, on their back, they might have some low back issues or some hip issues. And, you know, they could always use some degree of mobility. But I think back then I was so strong in just adjust and soft tissue therapy because that's what I'd learned when I was in school. And, you know, you start realizing it's not just that. There's more to it than just that. And then these fighters were always game for new information, you know, and so I can always remember, I mean, Kyle Kingsbury and like Josh Thompson were two of the big ones, you know, for me that I was always like, all right, let me try this on you. Let me try this on you. Let me try this on you.
Yeah, and they're looking for an edge.
Right.
So, hey, well, if this is going to help me, doc, then yeah, I'm doing it.
Right. You know, and they, you know, there was always a bunch of other guys that would come through and, you know, and then I, you know, decided to open up my own place and, you know, never once asked any, you know, athlete or anyone to come over, you know, that was on their own. And then they came over and just started treating more and more and more of these athletes. And then word, you know, gets out and, you know, and then you meet, you know, different people. Mike Potenza, I know, you know him. And yeah, I think you've had him on here as well, you know, and, you know, and so then you know, see a couple of the Sharks guys, you know, or, you know, rub, you know, shoulders with guys from the 49ers or, you know, again, different soccer or whatever it is. And now all of a sudden guys start calling you and, you know, wanting to come in and it's like, all right, now for me, I never wanted to treat the athlete different than my regular person. Right. And everyone's always the same. So you don't get that preferential treatment. You get the same from me, whether it's the amateur or it's the professional athlete, because we all need to do the same stuff. You just might have a bigger contract than someone that's in high school, you know,
there's more at risk.
Right. And so, you know, for me, I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and try and do something more gung ho on someone that, ooh, this is a high profile athlete. That doesn't work, you know? So if anything,
seems silly actually.
Right. You know, if anything, it's more spoon feed, you know, and like, all right, we're going to take this a little bit slower. And now we have to have more communication with your coaches or your trainers or your physical therapist or, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, it's a little bit more in depth with them, but my treatment is going to be the same, you know, and because my goal is to get everyone better as fast as I can, or as fast as their body will allow them to, you know, which is always the big one because everyone wants to be fixed now.
Right.
You know, but that, you know, we know that doesn't happen.
Right.
So
that's interesting. You just sort of talked about the things you want to do and get places. Maybe kind of describe just your philosophy as it relates to, you know, your specific philosophy to sort of health and wellness.
Yep.
And where does chiropractic fit into that? And chiropractic, I think, is very broad. Huge. Right. Yep. Now, whereas you go back 20, 30 years, it was very specific. Now it's very broad. So maybe you can kind of expand on that.
I think my like definition of what I do is I'm not like your typical chiro, right? You know, our job, I don't have to like physically adjust you so you can get that noise, you know, that comes out of your spine or whatever it is, you know, so we can teach you how to manipulate your own body, time under tension. You know, I love like the Eldoa positions, you know, to put people into, and, you know, breathing techniques that can help pump the spine. So it's not just laying you on your side and saying, all right, I'm going to, you know, snap your low back in half right here and get ready. Here it comes. You know, maybe that's going to help you, but that, in my opinion, it doesn't help long-term, right? Because we're not feeding the brain any information. We're just doing some passive modality and being like, all right, good luck. I'll see you in 2 days, you know? So I come at it as I want to watch how your body moves, right? And then sort of where your body has these movement disturbances, we want to try and tease out why, you know, and let's figure out where is this issue now coming from? And then how can we make these body parts move, you know, a lot more smooth, you know, and then can we start to load them if that's what your goal is, you know, and, you know, everyone's goals are different, you know, so if you're a runner or you're a CrossFitter, right, but you both have low backs that don't move as well, you have two different goals.
1,000%.
You know, so my treatment style may be a little bit different depending on, you know, what each one of their goals are, but my goal is to still make your body do what it's supposed to do, you know, so you can go enjoy that activity.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever that is. Right.
Whatever's appropriate for you. Yeah. You just mentioned there about the not sending the brain any feedback or information. It's maybe it's fair to say all day long, every day, 24/7, there's the signaling that's happening. There's the signals going in and there's the signals coming back, which impact, you know, how the body responds, right, and performs under those specific signals or circumstance. And so I heard you say, like, if I'm giving you an adjustment, I'm not necessarily giving you a signal that tells your brain to do something in return from a long-term perspective.
Right.
Maybe describe that. Like, so what's happening actually with an adjustment, right? When you hear that audible pop and what's happening neurologically or could happen neurologically?
I mean, I think keep it simple. You know, like when you crack your knuckles and things feel a little bit easier, right? You get that signal to the brain saying, oh, did we just open up that joint space, right? So when, you know, we put someone on a table and we adjust them, we're getting a quick signal to the tissue to sort of relax, right? So then they do feel better, right? And it's like, all right, you know, and that's when people say, well, my back went out. It's like, your back can't go out. If that's the case, that's a quick trip to the ER, right. You know, because you've got some issues going on, right. You know, or, oh, my disc slipped. It's like, they don't slip, you know? So things over time can change, right? And that's that physiological response that you've put in over time, you know, and what are we trying to do when we adjust them? I mean, it's like, I call it kick your shin therapy, right? You know, if I kick you in your shin
therapy,
you know,
I love it. Yeah.
And if your back pain went away, what are you going to let me do again? Right? You're going to let me kick you in the shin again because your back pain went away.
Feel better.
You know? Right. You know, and I think that's the bad part with a lot of, you know, our profession. Even, I mean, PTs will do it, massage therapy does it. I mean, we all do that, you know, but it's, what is our end goal, right? If your end goal is just to sit there and just keep collecting, all right, then that's you, right? For me, I can't do that, you know, and that's how I treat myself. You know, if I have an ailment of some sort, I'm going to go back to a potential root cause and try and figure out what that is. And all right, let's go back to the foundation and let's rebuild, right? And as you rebuild, you're only going to make your body change over time. It doesn't happen in one adjustment, right? Or one training session, or in one physical therapy session, right? Or a piece of paper that someone gives you and says, hey, right, you have low back issue, do these 6 stretches and you're going to be amazing. You know, I'm like, well, who'd you build that for? You know, because it sure as hell wasn't for me, right. You know? Yeah. I
think in the day when everybody, that's a general statement, but a lot of people are looking for the easy button or
right.
for the formula, right?
Right.
Everybody's got a formula for everything these days. I think what I take away from what I heard you say there was obviously is no one size fits all.
Right.
It's not going to happen overnight, and it's all very goal dependent, right, and dependent on the individual that you're working with. Yep. So there is no piece of paper, there is no specific protocol, and while the textbook, right, and the training will give you the basic skill to be able to perform a particular adjustment or manipulation or therapy or whatever, it doesn't give you the skill necessary to be able to identify and think bigger picture,
right,
and go down the road. And that comes from the constant reps, right? Just like anything else, sending the signal, just like training, right? You're trying to build muscle, you have to constantly send that signal in a way and then support it, you know, support the body nutritionally, right? From a rest perspective, recovery perspective, and when you get there.
And just getting outside of the box, right? Be outside the box and be able to willing to try some things that may be out of your wheelhouse, right? Because, I mean, you may be an excellent, you know, adjuster, but again, does that fix everyone, right? And no different than, you know, again, most PT or most chiro. Let's say they fix 75% of everyone. Perfect. I don't want the 75%. I want the 25%.
Right. That's a huge market. That's a huge piece left over.
Huge, right? You know, because
those are the people that are still hurting or need a different way, a different solution.
Right. Yeah. And so I think for me, the big one is, you know, education is always key, you know, and educating them, even if they were to never come back and see me, because some people they just don't agree with what I say, which is, hey, I'm okay with that. Right. But if they are educated as to what those potential threats are in their body when they leave, they can go to the next therapist and be like, you know what, this person, they said X, Y, and Z. Does that make any sense to you? You know, and if it does, and maybe they speak their same language, you know, then all of a sudden it resonates.
Gets communicated differently.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it's all about communication and relationship building, which is what you alluded, how you built your business in the first place.
Right.
So I'm curious. I was made aware of something the other day. It tripped me out a little bit. I had to read it 3 times. Somewhere in there, Justin, it said something about you originally being on the path to be a dentist.
Yep.
And I gotta be honest with you, like I value the dentist highly, but I can't stand the dentist. And I look at that job going, this has got to be the most miserable job on the planet. Tell us about the dentist path, man. Where did that come from?
Well, so my dad's a dentist, or was.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he retired almost 2 years ago now. And so again, you grow up with that, and you're like, oh,
this is what I do.
Yeah, it's a good profession, you know, and I can come over and take over, you know, his practice. And although it's, you know, back in Merced, you know, and so I went down that path and, you know, was doing the school, and I'm like, I can't do this, you know, and just wasn't for me, you know, it wasn't the path that I wanted to go down. So I taught high school for 4 years. I worked on golf courses for 2 years, you know, so took like a 6-year hiatus, you know, in between, when I was done with school, back into, going into chiro school, I'd played water polo with a couple guys that were chiros, and, hurt my back one time. And again, I knew nothing about what chiropractic was by any means. And one of them said, "Hey, come to the office and let's adjust you." I'm like, "Sure, whatever that is," and went into the office, and he again laid me on my side and, and cracked the back. And I was like, "Oh, it feels better." So he literally kicked me in the shin, right. And I'm like, "All right, that felt better," and so I think going into school, I believe I was only adjusted maybe once or twice. That was it. But I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare, and I, looked at PT, but I'd have to go back to school for a year to get into PT to, do some of the prerequisites that I hadn't taken for, over 6 years. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. So, they said, "Hey, just apply to chiro school and you've got all the prerequisites since your degree's in biology." And so I did, and they're like, "Yep, you're in." Perfect. So let's go. I don't know what this is, but let's let it ride.
It's so funny. You're not the first person to sit in that chair to tell a similar story about how they kind of got to where they're at. It was just kind of like, I'm not quite sure. I had a physician sit in that same chair not too long ago. It was like, I just decided one day
I'm going to do it.
And you did it.
Yeah. Which was huge at that time, cause we were, with my ex, we had 2 jobs. We could do whatever we wanted. We could go where we wanted. And all of a sudden we go from 2 jobs to 1, and now I'm in school full time. And it's like, wow, this is a whole different thing. And, I can remember for me, it was, all right, here's my first semester here. I'm going to go back to school, right? I'm going to get straight A's, I want to be valedictorian, blah, blah, blah. And after the first quarter, I'm like, yeah, I'm out.
I just hope I get through.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're good. A's, B's, and C's, whatever, don't care. Let's just get through this mess, and then we'll figure it out on the back end.
So how was that experience? I mean, how was the chiro school experience for you? Did you feel like you were, because you had already had, a certain level of education at that point, you'd already been through kind of the educational experience at one point. Did you feel like you were getting what you needed?
No.
Talk about that.
No, it was, I think it was a lot of just hoops. Your first year is all your sciences, which that's what my 4 years of, of college was anyways, it was all biology. So that was, easy, but it was, you can go back to passion, I don't know if there's passion in the school or not, it's just sort of, all right, here's a hoops for a bunch of kids to get through. Let's just, here's the PowerPoint, sit here and regurgitate.
Ticking boxes.
Right. And here, take your test and pass your test and then call it good. Your information. All right, next, and so there wasn't a lot of, outside context, I think, going into school. And me and there were 3 other friends, and they've got clinics out in Austin, Texas now. And so like the 4 of us, I can remember I think it was 3rd quarter of school where we went out to Dallas, Texas, and we took our first ART, seminar, which is the active release, therapy, and which was amazing, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. Because now you're rubbing elbows with other students and other, docs and PTs and stuff that are now taking this information. So that was our sort of our indoctrination to outside of, everything in school,
the institution.
Right. And then you just started taking some other classes outside of that. And then
this is while going to school.
This is going to school.
Right.
And then, each October when they had the Ironman for 3 years out in Kona, we would go out to Kona, and then we got to work on all the athletes, and do ART, stuff to them. And you're out there for an entire week, which was, amazing, great experience, dealing with nothing but high level athletes for an entire week. And then at the very end, you got to work, the Ironman triathlon, which was, just bonkers in itself, and so we did that 3 years in a row. And, again, you start taking some other seminars, here and there, and while you're in school. And then once you get out, it's like, all right, how do I put all this together? And, but I think the school itself was mainly just, like you said, like check the boxes, and make sure that you pass your boards and you get through, and you have enough information you get out to be dangerous, but you don't know the business part of it. You don't know how to manage. I call it the Palmer drones, that once you're into clinic, you get to start treating people, and, they know what they want. They tell you what to treat. And you're just sitting there again, same thing. All right, I got my adjustment. I got my hot pack. I got my E-stim. I got
box ticking.
Right. And it's like you get out and going, all right, well, I just did that for a year. Now what the hell do I do?
So what was your experience there with that transitioning out of school? Did you go into clinic with an established chiropractor who had a spot and basically do what you just said for a while?
So I met Dr. Omura at Score Clinic. So I met him in, I want to say it was my 8th quarter at a seminar up in San Francisco.
Yeah, he's a legend around here, by the way.
Yeah, great guy. And so then I started working there like Thursdays and Saturdays, right? And all I was doing was like soft tissue therapy. So I got to see actually how a clinic was run, you know, and it was a busy clinic. So there were times when I would see 30 people in a day.
A lot of reps.
Right. You know, and where I might see 30 people in an entire month, you know, in school, right? So I had that hands-on ability to be like, all right, I know what I'm learning here because this is real life. And then go back to clinic and be like, all right, well, I can take my time with you because I don't have anyone else on my books for the rest of the day, you know? And so seeing, I guess, best of both worlds, you know, on that end. But yeah, once I got through school, then it was starting my 8th quarter, graduated, worked another 3 years, you know, at his practice and just trying to hone my skills, you know, and figure out how things work. And I developed protocols, you know, he had like a traction table, you know, and then tried to do protocols for exercise routines because they had a small gym there, you know. So I was always trying to build, you know, and I realized that building never did anything because it was all templates, you know, and those templates again doesn't match to every single person that's come through the door.
But it makes sense. Like mechanically, like in your brain, you're going, well, I see a lot of the similar things. Like these are similar problems, but they didn't get there the same way. Right. And then obviously they're not coming to you at the same point. Right. They're coming at you at much different points in their process or their journey through whatever. Maybe it's an acute low back injury from whatever, a fall or an accident or something like that. Or maybe this is a cumulative thing from it's happened over years and years, and this would take a different approach. So yeah, the template idea, while there are frameworks for like, okay, here's a starting point for me, and here's the matrix of things that I could choose from in terms of how I operate here. Looking for the template or the formula you found obviously didn't work. But I heard you say there, the timeline there was like 3 years.
Yes.
Along that time, that 3 years, are you thinking, I got to get out of here? No. Or what's going through your head?
No, it was, you know, I mean, even when I have people that come in now and they ask about, well, should I start my own or should I go work for someone? I'm like, go let someone else pay for your own mistakes, right? I mean, that's how you're going to learn right now. Not that you're going to go out there and hurt someone, you know, but if you're on your own, right, and you need that next person to come through the door and that person didn't like you, they're not going to talk about you, right? You know, where in an established clinic, right, if they didn't like who you were, they can go to another therapist inside their own clinic if that was the case, you know, so they didn't have to leave.
And you're going to get feedback on that.
Right. And so that was...
Hopefully it's constructive.
Right. You know, and so I think, you know, that 3-year process was... At the end of those, it was 4 years total, but, you know, at the end of that 4th year for me was like going, all right, my philosophy and this philosophy aren't the same anymore.
They're different.
They're 100% different.
That's okay. You recognize that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So as I recognize saying, all right, if I'm treating this person with a low back issue and I keep doing the same thing, they keep coming in over and over and over and over and over again with the same low back issue, then what I'm doing isn't fixing them. What can I do different? You know, and because it was such a protocol-based system, you come in, you know, we put you on a table, we put muscle stim on you, we bring you back out, we stretch you for a couple minutes, we do some soft tissue therapy on you, right? And then we adjust you, and if we have some time, maybe we give you 1 or 2 exercises if that's the case, and then, you know, peace out. Like there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't get them to do anything different, you know, and it's behavioral, and they're like, but I feel good for those 15 minutes. Well, yeah, because you're laying down and you're shutting your brain off. Right.
We're overriding the signals.
Right.
Which in this person's case is the pain signal.
Yes. Yeah. So for years after I left, it was pretty funny because I would get people that, you know, I would see over there and they're like, hey, do you have a muscle stim machine or a hot pack machine? I'm like, no, I don't own any of that stuff. Well, how are you going to make my back feel better? I'm going to make you work. You know, we're going to make you do some work.
Interesting. So they're kind of conditioned to this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
God, that's kind of what it sounds like what we're conditioned to now as a society. Like I get sick, I have pain, I see the doctor, they prescribe a pill and or a piece of paper. Yeah,
whatever it is. Right.
Or 4 weeks of physical therapy, whatever that is or looks like. And again, you go there, you get a piece of paper, you get a basic protocol or a template, and then you leave and nothing changes long term. Right.
And then you get those people that will come back and say, I've done my PT religiously for 2 years now.
And I still don't feel better.
Right. And I'm like, well, what have you been doing? The same exercise they gave me 2 years ago.
With no new stimulus.
Right. Nothing. And I'm like, but that doesn't work. If you go to the gym, do you do the same workout every single day? Well, no, why would I do that?
Well, some people do. And then they wonder why they don't change.
True. Right. And they wonder why they're not, you know, doing what or I didn't lose any weight. You know, it's like, well, you tell me why.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting. So I just, the 3-year timeline, or I think you ended on 4 years. By 4 years, you'd sort of figured it out. I've always kind of said that about coaching, from a personal training perspective, is it's once you get that, whatever it is, your degree, your certification, your degree and certification, whatever your qualification is to come into the business and personal training, it's a very low barrier of entry, very low. But, once you've done that and you've made an effort, to get that done, whatever that is, it takes about 3 years to finally figure out, this is how all this works. Those templates that I tried to use didn't work. You start to recognize, I guess you're in a position to finally understand that there's many things that you don't know, and it's okay to not know those. Right. And you need to maybe apply things differently. And then you're kind of looking for the right fit, from there. It's like, okay, so I have to make a decision now. Do I open my own business or do it my way? Right. Or do I do what you just suggested, which is, okay, do I go someplace else that might be a better fit for me, that shares a more similar philosophy and uses some methodologies that I can kind of be on board with, and or things that I don't know yet and can continue to learn about to then take with me in the future. And that takes time. You have to kind of search around or figure it out. And if you've just kind of been buried in your little hole, right, and you haven't been building relationships and you haven't been communicating, and you haven't been paying attention, and this is the way, because my whole academic career, what I've been taught is you do the chapter, you take the test, you move to the next chapter, you take the test, and at the end, there's a degree or there's a pot of money or there's a clinic or
you get something.
You get something at the end.
You're rewarded with something.
So at the end of your 3 or almost 4 year process here, what do you do? Are you ready to do it on your own? You think you are?
I mean, I thought that I was, and so at that point is when I started looking for, a location, and I drove by this building like every single day going to the office.
And you fell in love with it?
No, I'm like, I saw that it was vacant. So I'm like, all right, let me just go take a look at it. Right. And I go inside and I look and I'm like, this place is pretty cool, and it's got treatment rooms. It's got this massive area that I could rip down some walls and turn into my own gym inside there. And, it's got a full kitchen. And, back then it was 3,500 square feet,
that's a lot of space, man.
At like $1 a square foot. So I'm like, all right, and again, not knowing business, I'm like, let's do it. Sign on the dotted line. Let's go, and signed a 5-year lease. And, then I realized I sit in there and I'm like, all right.
It's quiet in here. There's a lot of space.
Just myself, and so as I have to figure out, all right, I've got X bills, and before I never had to worry about the business aspect of it because all I did was treat, and so now it's me going, all right, I need to treat people now, but I need to get people through the door. So how do I go out and get these people so I can now pay for rent? They actually gave me 4 months for free rent, is what they did. Just had to pay the triple net, and so again, not knowing what triple net was back then, I'm like, oh, what is this?
That's an eye-opener.
Right. Yep. And so at that point it was like, I think, $2,000 for the triple net or something like that, or $1,500. But I still had to make that somehow, and so it forced me to go out on month one, be like, all right, I need X people a week, in order to treat, just to break even by month's end, and I think the first week I saw like 5 people, and which was different from me seeing 30 people in a day, so huge change. But again, I'm the one that's answering the phones. I'm now doing the scheduling. We are taking insurance. So it was me now doing some billing. So it was me learning that process at 5 people during the week. And the next week we doubled. And the next week, I doubled, and then we doubled. And so all of a sudden I just keep doubling. And then pretty soon I'm going, well, I'm here every single day and I'm seeing people now every single day. How do I now start to figure out how to schedule accordingly? So I'm not here from 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock.
You got to scale
4 people.
Yeah. You're growing sort of rapidly. Right. You're 5X or you're 2Xing every week or every month or whatever it is. That's pretty soon that catches up and you recognize other things have to give. Yep.
And then it was, I had such a big space. I'm like, all right, can I bring some other people in? And so I had 2 friends that came in and they were, they're both chiros, and then another friend who was a massage therapist, and they rented some space. And so that, at least that helped with my overhead, part of it. So it lessened my burden, on that end. And then it was like, all right, how are we all building together? How are we collaborating together? Are we going to collaborate? So
how did that work? Because, you can get those egos, you can get those pieces of paper on the wall where, this person graduated from this school. And in this case, I think everybody went to Palmer. So they're kind of coming at it probably with a lot of a similar background. That is,
right.
you're not, you don't have Palmer in life, and because I know there's things there. But my point is you get people and they're all eager, right? They're all determined. Right. Some maybe more than others.
Right.
Some maybe not pulling the same amount of weight, or have different ideas, or not taking it as seriously. And you got different personalities and different energies and all that kind of stuff. How did it work out?
Worked out for me really well, worked out for them not so well. Right. And what I mean by that is I think it taught me how to handle those egos, right? And whether, again, they're busy or not busy, and how do we deal with that? How do we communicate with them? I'm sitting there saying, well, I'm getting busier. Why are you guys not getting busy? What are you going to do about that? And with me, the way that we had things structured, it was always me at the end of the day that was paying. And even though they were like independent contractors, it's like, you paid a percentage based on what you made during the month. What you brought to the table. They could show up and not do anything and still owe zero.
And have a place to come when they wanted to, because you're making the stroke.
Right. And so for me, it was like, all right, like 2 years or so in, I'm like, all right, this doesn't work. We have to change some of this. So I need to give you guys like a base. This is what you guys are responsible for. You're responsible for. And, one had already bounced out, and he's like, I'm done with chiropractic. I'm gonna go be a fireman. So he went and did that. And then the other one's like, that's just too expensive for me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, then that's going to X you out, and another one stayed, and that was Baker, and Baker's still been with me for, I think it's been like 9 years now. So
I'm interested to know what were the things that they weren't doing that you were doing that meant the difference between them being successful at those things and the things that so there's certain things they were doing and that they're not doing, and there's doing it, but there's also doing it in a successful, productive kind of way. Can you share what those were?
I think for me, it was more of like, I don't have a problem talking about whatever we need to talk about wherever we are, if
back to communication,
right. We're just communicating. And if we're having a discussion, I don't have a problem asking them, hey, you have this issue, come in and see me. Right.
Wow. You mean yourself? You might have a conversation that might be a little uncomfortable.
Right. And so others like, there's no way I could do that. I'm like, but you play on, these different, softball teams or basketball teams or soccer teams, and yet people are injured all the time, and this is what you do. Why can you not talk to these people, but yet this is who you want to treat,
What do you think the roadblock was? Looking back,
probably just lack of communication, just to be anyways. Period. Right.
I wonder. Right. So I wonder because when I hear that kind of thing, from coaches or anybody, I'm like, is it that you don't believe in yourself? You can't sell yourself, like, because maybe you don't believe in yourself. Maybe you're not confident in your skill or your ability.
I think for our profession, and you could probably, as trainers and stuff, could definitely relate to this, or you being now a business owner and seeing it, right, is I think with our profession is because there is no, there's no barrier to entry, right? You can get your degree, or you can get whatever you need to get into school. Mm-hmm. And so you get into school, okay, but there was no weed out process. So now all of a sudden you're
being weeded after the fact.
Right. Now you're in the profession and they're weeding you out because you didn't have that skill where, let's say, the medical profession, you go into a hospital, the hospital is providing for you, right? As a PT, unless you owned your own PT clinic, right? You're working in a hospital setting or a clinic setting, right? Mm-hmm. So they're feeding you that information. So you just show up to work and you do your job.
Right.
For us, right? Unless you're working in a large clinic where you could probably do the same thing, but for the most part, if you're doing your own thing, you have to go out and be able to communicate. And if you can't communicate, that's going to take you out anyways.
Yeah, I find that such a challenge for so many people. And again, it's really a shame that people get that far into the process, and whether it's that they're naive or disillusioned, or they just cannot find a way to get it done to overcome their insecurities or their, whatever that happens to be, that it leads to, I'm actually leaving the profession altogether rather than maybe going somewhere to get educated on how to do it, or accepting and having the conversation that you're trying to have with them is like, hey, you need to be doing these things. If you're not, I'll help you with them. But that means our agreement needs to change, because this is business at the end of the day. So I've had a lot of conversations with chiro students lately. And one of those conversations is about sort of the building your business curriculum is being taken out of school. And it's not even really being offered. Let's just say it's being severely sort of cut back.
Right.
And I wonder what your thoughts are on that, knowing that, man, you're going to have to go out and learn this stuff anyway, but now we're cutting that back even further. What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think that's happening?
I mean, I think it's, you know, it's crazy, right? Because I think they're going to come out and they know nothing about business, but yet you're asking them to now go run a business, you know, but you've taught them everything they need to do to be able to adjust someone, right? But you haven't taught them how to sustain them as a human in this world, right? So you gave them a trick, right? And there's no show, right? But yet they want to sit there and perform the trick over and over and over and over again. And they don't understand why no one's coming to the show, you know? And I mean, I would speak to the 13th quarter and, you know, same thing. And I'm like, hey, I'm transparent. You want to know what I've made, what it takes to run the business. You want to know what my overhead is? I'll tell you. Right. And all of a sudden you just see eyes like big going, yeah, you want to know what just a couple of expenses are between, you know, your employees and your rent. Right. I'm like, and they're like, Jesus, seriously?
And this is, you know? They're hearing this for the first time. It's never, they've even thought of it. Right. Nobody's teaching this stuff.
No, you know, and that, I think that right there becomes a huge problem, because they come out in the world thinking, well, I'm going to go out and make $1 million now because I'm a chiropractor and I'm a doctor.
And I deserve it.
Right. Yeah. You're okay. So yeah, you are a doctor of chiropractic, but what did you just get? You got a piece of paper on the wall that does what for you? Right. It's a big bill. I would say there's another qualification to that. And you're not a chiropractor unless you've got patients to practice on. You have no practice if there's nobody to practice on. Exactly.
So again, you've got a really expensive acronym behind your name and a lot, probably debt to boot.
Huge.
Which just kind of blew my mind when I was hear that, because it happened. I've heard it from at least 3 people. Yeah. And these are at different schools too. Okay. So it's happening at all over. Right. So I wonder also if that has something to do with the fact that the people that are actually teaching in the school, did not have success, right, as business owners / chiropractors in the field. And so they maybe don't have, or they're finally recognizing that maybe what they have been teaching them doesn't hold a lot of value or isn't very practical in today's world.
Right.
And you find that in education all the time. I think in the institution of education, what we often do is deconstruct, what models look like and theories look like and whatnot, but we don't really build anything. Right. So that's all we're doing in school is kind of working backwards through the problem constantly. And that being said, kind of being given all the pieces to get to a solution or an answer. And when I say that, I mean literally given the pieces to the problem and expecting that the pieces to the problem are going to be given to me so that I can figure it out. Puts the aspiring chiropractor, business owner, coach, practitioner, whatever, in a really, really tough position.
And then the bad part, is, as you know, when clients come in to see you, you're probably not the very first person that they've hired to come in and train them, just like us. I mean, they've probably been to 3 or 4 or 5 others typically, on that end of things. And so when they come in, they already have some preconceived notion as to what they're going to get, and for me, I will preface it. I'm like, I am not your typical chiro, right? We might do things a little bit different. You may like it, you may not. I don't know yet, but at the end of this hour session right here, we'll figure it out, and if you don't like it, I will help you go find someone else.
I'll gladly draw you a map and give you a number.
Right. I'm okay with that, right? You're not going to hurt my feelings, and it's like, and if it fits, perfect. There's going to be stuff I'm going to hold you accountable for, right? And we need to figure that out.
Yeah, that alignment piece is so important, and just the client, patient, practitioner, coach relationship. There just has to be lined out. And again, going back to having what could feel like an uncomfortable conversation, I think as coaches and practitioners, man, that has to be like the most normal part of it and natural part. I mean, there's got to be a natural transition into this kind of a conversation. Before we get into talking about fees for service and all that kind of thing.
It just makes that easier though.
Oh, hell yeah. There's no question that it's a natural flow. It should be a natural flow, but if that's not being taught, or if you don't have those reps, or if you're the new chiro who's waiting to take your boards or whatever, and you're walking into that office and you're getting your reps, but all you're getting is the adjustment reps, so to speak, or the E-stim and the hot packs and the, whatever it happens to be, but you're not getting the business reps. You need to either ask for those, or you need to find a new environment to get in to get those. Cause ultimately, all you are is the errand boy, and you're not learning what you need to learn. So start kind of moving on from that. not advocating for yourself as a new chiro is going to be really, that's going to be a big problem for you. But what are maybe some, if you're not doing that, I think it's a mistake. What are some other big mistakes you see new chiros coming into the field with? Because, and maybe it's important to note, your model is sort of a traditional model in that you do have space. You have you've always had a couple of very successful, well put together chiros in your office. You've shared your office with, you just kind of explained that model. And then you've also had, hey, I'm also providing an opportunity for people to come in and cut their teeth. Right. So what are the mistakes? Because they come and they go, right? It's just like coaching. What are the mistakes you see them making? The common ones.
I think it depends on what their background is. What I've seen over my 15 years of now doing this, is if someone there was a break between, let's say, schools, between them being a chiro, they were a trainer before, they did something before, they have better communication skills versus just going from school to graduate now out in the real world. Right. And I don't think they understand that business aspect like we were just talking about. So I think that the ones that have gone from school to school, they jump out expecting, this is exactly what I need, right? And this is what has to happen for me to be successful. Where the ones that actually worked realize, all right, I wasn't successful before because that's why I probably chose a different path, and now I'm in the real world right now. All right, I need to be humble. I need to learn. I need to be able to expand that knowledge and be able to apply that knowledge per situation, whereas, the ones that just come out go textbook, low back, I'm going to do X and there is no Y and Z. Right. And then it's like, but this is exactly what I did, and then they'd never question the why they did what they did because that's exactly what they learned when they were in school because there was no failure. Right. Whereas again, those people that had some other alternative before they got into school and now after, they know what the real world sort of has to offer, whatever that job was before.
I think that's probably pretty common across the board. People coming out. It's again, there's that step by step. If I do this, then that kind of thing, and there's an expectation at the end of the stepping stones or whatever happens to be. It's very disillusioned. Sort of coming into it, and then there's this kind of expectation. I don't think the word is entitlement. They just don't know. It's an expectation, but to other people that have done it like you did it, right? It can feel like there's entitlement there. Right. Like, dude, I hear what you're asking for, but you haven't done the work yet.
And that's what a lot of them with me, I'm like, hey, if you want that bonus, show me.
Right.
Don't tell me you want one. Right. Don't tell me you want a raise. I'm going to go back to your numbers and be like, hey, look at your numbers, because if your numbers are the same, why do I want to keep giving you, or why would I give you a raise when your numbers are the same? Look at mine, right? And I'd always base what I paid myself with them, right? And so my bonus structure was always the same as all of my employees. So that never changed because I'm like, we are a team. I'm no better than you are, right? So because of us putting things together, I may own the business, right? That's a whole different thing because I'm spending a lot more hours outside running the business than what you are just coming in and treating, right? So, but in the treating, I'm not taking time off so I can go do something different, but if I do that, that means I afforded myself that ability to do it because I already treated X number of people before you did.
I think this, so if you're a new chiro out there, a new coach, and you might be listening to this right now, maybe an experienced chiro and you've been in it for a while and you're not getting out of your practice or out of, your profession what you want to, this is important to think about because you may be blown away. Like Justin's mentioning bonuses, there's probably chiros out there in offices right now. I know there are that there's a bonus structure somewhere in a chiropractic office. Like I come in, I treat, I get paid based on how many treatments I do, like I get paid hourly or there's a salary. I could treat 35 people in a day, or I could treat 3 people in a day. I get paid the same, whatever else. I mean, you're talking about how to incentivize somebody and get some skin in the game and then get them to do work. And then also obviously like, when you do that work, you get paid, right? There's a bonus, right? There's an incentive to do that, and allows you, gives you freedom and flexibility to do other things, like go out and get new education, or new things, and constantly thinking that way versus money all the time. What do I have to do to sustain this over time? Right. Modeling. But maybe if we sat and we built sort of together what the success formula, if you could kind of build the success formula for a new chiro who's coming out of school. Like, and you could kind of set it up for them in the best way possible. And there really were no restrictions to this. for them, and they could get all the best of everything that they needed in order to ultimately be successful, have their own business, and thrive in that business and in life. Let's start with it. What is the thing they need to come out of school with and be focused on first to kind of set the stage?
Wow. I think to set the stage, I mean, their attitude.
Yeah. I would agree. Like mindset.
Yeah. Mindset, attitude. That's number one. Because if they're already coming in and they're just like, oh, I got this. Well, you might be part of that 1 or 2%, that can do that. But the rest of the, 98, 99% of the people, that's not going to happen. So that attitude I think is huge. Going, all right, be humble. It's going to take some time, right? Be good with it. But every day you're trying to get 1% better. And so if they can get 1% better on a daily basis, I mean, it may take you 3 months, but in 3 months, you're already 90% better,
Yeah. I think it's sort of it's the attitude of the athlete, right? The business owner, the athlete, the person that's winning in life, right. And in business is probably thinking that way.
Right.
And so if you don't come into the right mindset, so mindset being number one, number two, you've just come out of school and we kind of just alluded to this. So you're coming into it with the right mindset. For me, the next most important thing is you got to have a fucking amazing product, right? You got to be able to deliver, what you say you're going to deliver. And that means making sure you continue your educational process. You do the things and put in place the things that are going to help your clients and you and the business be successful in that order, right? It's got to be client centric. It's got to be client focused in my mind. Like, look, the product and what we're delivering here, it's not going to be a template.
Right.
And so I have to be prepared for anybody that walks through that door and know who those people are and know what those issues are and be able to go forward with this, with this treatment or with this plan or this solution. So, which
I think goes back to mindset, right?
1,000%.
If they're coming back to that mindset of I've already got this, or my mindset is, all right, my hours are 8 to 5. Right? Because if it's at 5 and you shut your brain off at 5, then you're not that businessman. Yeah. Right? Because as a business owner, you don't shut off when the door's locked. Right?
I don't even know what 8 to 5
right.
is.
It's 24/7. So you may have 40 hours here in the gym, but you're going to spend another 40 hours outside doing something different.
Right.
But it's always back to the gym.
Right. And it's important to know right off the bat where you are with that.
Right.
Because if you're thinking, I'm going to work 8 to 5 and then shut it down and go ride my mountain bike for 3 hours and then go spend some time with the kids and, have weekends off and go on vacations and shit like that. Don't try and start your own business. Just don't.
And again, I think there's going to be a small percentage of people that can do that and they might be successful at that. Good on them, but for the most part, that just doesn't happen.
Right. Right. So moving forward in the success formula. So you have this, again, you have to have the right mindset, right? And then you have to have an amazing product. Like if you're delivering, if all you're doing is trying to polish a turd, then that's all it's ever going to be. And eventually that's going to catch up with you. People might not notice that at first, but it's going to happen. It'll show. So I think you have to be in kind of the mindset also of being able to connect with the client and help them with understanding, and you mentioned this already, and that's kind of why I'm bringing it back up. You telling them this, first off, I understand what your problem is, and then get them to understand what their problem is. But more importantly, and this is the piece that you expanded on, is understanding that all the things that they've tried and all the things that they maybe already have preconceived is not going to work. So, or hasn't worked for them.
Which I think is the education.
That's right. That's the word. Educate. You have to educate them.
You have to educate them. You're not telling them, right? Because I think everyone tells everyone stuff and it goes in one ear out the other, right? But I think if you can paint a picture for them, you can show them. I mean, I'm always asking my clients, do you understand, right? Did you get that one? Did you understand? Do you understand? Because if they don't, the last thing I want is them walking out of the office going, I didn't understand a word he said.
Confused or
right?
Just unclear.
Unclear, right. And so sometimes for me, making one exercise, that one exercise they're going to do, even though they may want 5. Like, no. I need you to become a ninja at this one. That's it. Nothing more, right? You show me that you're a black belt in this movement. Perfect. I will graduate you to the next level, right? And I think that's where now all of a sudden, like, I mean, my big one is like the 90-90, right? I mean, that's a big one because most people, our hips are garbage.
Yeah, if you're looking for something, like, that's a great place to start because everybody's going to get probably some benefit out of that.
100%.
Very few people on the planet don't get some benefit out of it.
You know, and again, it's even from my dancers to, you know, my bodybuilders or whatever, right? I mean, their hip physiology is going to be different. I get all that, right? But do we have the control necessary in order to move your anatomy how we want to move it? So as we educate that client, you know, as to the why, this is why you're trying to do this, and this is why you're getting the pain that you're now experiencing. If we go backwards a little bit, and we can now try and change some of these behaviors that your body has adapted over time, right? Now all of a sudden we have a new you.
What's the most effective way you found to do what you just said? Like, in terms of, so you're going to educate them, and so there's telling them, but what else are you doing in your office with your clients to help them be a ninja at that particular?
I'm getting on the ground with you. You know, I'm hands-on, right? I mean, I'm showing you, you know, I want to be able to show you what I expect you to be able to do, right? And so all the exercises and stuff that I will give to people, I'll tell them I can do myself, right? And so I will show you what I expect your body to be able to do. Can it always be better? 100%, you know? And so when people look at me and go, oh, you're so mobile, you can do da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, but it's taken me 6 years to get here, you know, with ACL tears and back surgery and all these other things that I've had, you know, but I still keep myself mobile enough so I can go play. And that's my goal. And I'm not going to make an excuse, and I can always still hurt myself, but I have less risk.
Yeah. So you're being not only are you being the educator, you're being like the player's coach, right? And getting out there on the field with them and showing them how to do it. I think that's extraordinarily important. I think you have to be able to, depending on what business you may be in or what exercise or whatever that you're showing, like, you're a coach, obviously you need to manage things, right? You need to manage your body. But what I heard you say there is this isn't a piece of paper. Right. It's not an app. Right. It's not, I'm not getting you to sign up for some exercise program online. Like, those are tools to help you review and maybe continue the education process and give you some insight into the things that you could be doing beyond. But this is what we're focused on now, and you're being part of that solution. I think that's so overly missed because people are trying to scale going, how do I cut all of that out? Right. How do I just give people the answers and check in? Right. And there's always, that's just added value, I think, the check-ins, but it's the actual sitting down and walking through revisiting the problem, right? Revisiting the solution, seeing, and again, we if you can measure it, you can manage it. So there's this constant check-in process in your solution process, right? Like, hey, when I present this problem, or this, when we understand what the problem is, here's the solution. As you keep coming back in here, we're going to keep checking in and find out, are we making progress? If we're not, we examine why not. We examine the gap. What is the gap here? And is it that you're not doing the exercise, or you didn't understand the assignment, as the kids say these days? Or do we just we need more frequency or whatever else? So I think it's putting yourself in a position as a business owner, as a manager, as a leader, you know, of your clients, of your practitioners, of your coaches, whatever, on the floor, to actually get on the floor and do it. And I think that's just missed now. People are looking for what's a third party I can bring in here and do that? Can I have an intern do this? Well,
it's even, you know, if I go back to like my teaching days, right, I would give out tests that in the instructions, I would say, do not take this test. Sit here for 20 minutes.
Oh yeah. As a high school teacher?
Right. You know, and sit here for 20 minutes, then bring the test up, put your name on it. And you would be surprised at how many people actually took the test.
Because they never read the instructions.
Right. And so I think the same thing here is, what are the instructions, and are you giving clear instructions? You know, or are you just giving some instruction? You know, and then again, they're just lost in translation. You know, or are you walking them through A, B, C, D, or did we skip those steps? And I think we like to skip steps because we want a lot of these exercises to look sexy, right? They're not. Right? Making your body move better is not sexy. Right? It's making your shit move nice. Yeah. You know, and when it doesn't move nice, then we have a problem.
Then you hurt.
Right.
Or then you don't perform.
Right. So how do we go backwards to go forward? You know, and I think a lot of people just want to keep moving forward because they want to go play now pickleball, which is big, or tennis, or go for a run, or do whatever, you know, mountain bike now, and they wonder why their body is now broken. Well, you didn't take any steps to build yourself a resilient body to do what you're looking to do, because you sit at your desk all day long and you're a desk ninja, right?
But you're an expert at that.
Right. You know, and then you want to go do, you know, black belt stuff, but you expect yourself to be a black belt, but yet you're a white belt.
Yeah. That can be the most frustrating part for a coach or a practitioner, right? And looking at, or again, management, leadership, parent, you know, like, so you have to establish, you know, there's some things I'm educating you, I'm showing you, I'm giving you the plan. This is my role and responsibility in this.
Right.
But this is what your roles and your responsibilities are in this as a client, as a patient, as a child or whatever else. Right. And so again, that comes back to the measuring and managing. Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing here in order to get to this result? And 99% of the time, if we're not getting the result we're looking for, it's because somebody isn't fulfilling their responsibilities in that process. But if you do that up front, then everybody gets accountability.
Yes.
Right. And then there's no weirdness or questions about, well, you know, I went and saw that guy for 6 weeks and I didn't feel better.
Right.
Well, why not?
Right.
And that's a surprise to me because, you know, like I thought we were moving on the right path. Right. It would be a huge surprise to everybody involved if that truly was the case. And I think a lot of times the bigger part of that is somebody didn't do their job very well.
Right.
Somebody didn't establish that communication pathway to make that work.
Their management was off.
Somewhere.
Whoever's management. Right.
And then obviously there has to be some kind of a process for this. And we're talking about managing your schedule and who you see and how you see it. You have to kind of flawlessly execute that all the time so the client knows this is how it's supposed to go. This is what happens when I come here. This is what doesn't happen when I come here. We get down to business right away, or I can kind of ease into this thing, or whatever the case is. Like you have to have processes. And I think a lot of people focus on the processes. When I say people, I think business owners, they want this. This is the process, and they focus on the process all day long. They almost overdevelop the process and they miss the things that kind of happen in between. And that's not shit you learn at school.
No. And if they're cutting that out, that's a big disservice.
That goes right back to what I was talking about. Yeah.
Huge disservice.
I feel like there's a business opportunity here, Justin, for us.
I think so.
So, we talked a little bit about, we talked about your model and you giving people the opportunity within your clinic to go through these things. Right. And part of doing that, I imagine, because it's the same for in the fitness business, part of doing that is doing a really good job at that and then losing somebody.
That's huge, you know, and I think especially being here in the Silicon Valley, because it's so expensive here, you know, trying to get people to stay, right? That's a hard one, you know, or stay for just a period of time. Yeah. Because they know that they can go out and now take those skills, which, hey, I'm all for you learning whatever skills I can give you, then go out and do what you have to do, you know, because ultimately that's what we want. You know, I want you to go out and go thrive. I also want someone to stick around.
Right.
Too.
It hurts. It stings when that happens. But you know what? That's not uncommon here in Silicon Valley, period. I mean, with tech being dominant here and all the support businesses that support tech. I mean, if you're with a company 3 to 5 years, that's a fucking eternity here. People are constantly looking for the new deal. Sure. There's constantly new companies opening. They continue to get more specialized and more specialized and more specialized. It's not an uncommon thing. So as a business owner, if you're looking to build one of these businesses, you have to recognize that is the reality. Yes. And you just like continually putting new clients into the funnel, you always have to be looking for the talent.
Right.
I don't know for you, I know how it's been for us in this last couple of years with the current events that are going on, but that's become a very tough process. Have you experienced the same thing?
Yeah, huge. I mean, you know, the very beginning of all this mess, you know, I mean, we had to close, you know, offices and had to, you know, let, you know, employees go, you know, and that's never fun to do. Right. You know, and, then people left because, again, they're trying to figure out where they're trying to manage their time at, you know, and whether they, I don't think any of them really stayed here, but, you know, majority of them, they all moved, you know, and went home somewhere, wherever home was, you know, and so, yeah, that's a tough thing to try and see. And then back to, like, you know, even what you're doing now is that rebuilding phase and trying, what's your team, you know, and how do you build your team again? And, you know, for me, people say, well, do you want to expand to more offices? And I'm like, I don't know if I do. Yeah. You know, it's
it makes me want to throw up right now thinking about that.
As much as I may want that, I'm like, I don't know if I want that headache again. Yeah. You know, I like simplicity right now, you know, and there is something to be said about just, I know my schedule and all right, I'm good.
So that begs the question. So what shifts have you seen or have you had to make, and what shifts or maybe you seeing other chiros in the business having to make as a result of, you know, all the things that you just mentioned?
I don't know about other, you know, chiros. I just know for me, just, you know, I mean, pretty much this past, year and a half has been head down and try and figure out the world, you know, and so I don't really worry about what anyone else is doing at this point. So for me, it is, you know, how do I expand on what I have right now, you know, and how can I get, you know, another one or two, you know, docs and PTs, whatever it might be, and into the office, and just, I think, make that office the best office possible. And if there's an opportunity to expand, then we look at it, you know. If not, then, you know what, I'm going to just stay where we're at and be like, all right, we have a solid team. I just want to keep a solid team.
Right. It's a critical, right? I mean, when you are rebuilding, there's this sense of culture that may get sort of lost or cloudy. The culture can kind of change when you lose veterans or you lose people that have sort of been in it for a while that help, you know, that culture thrive and flourish. Right. I think so when you lose those people, it means it's clients and patients too. When you lose those people, things kind of feel different, and it's uncomfortable, man. It is weird while you're trying to kind of rebuild things. Also, when you recognize this is going to be different, right? And I'm going to have to get used to that, and I'm going to have to shift this over here, and I'm going to have to adjust this over here. This toggle is not going to work anymore. Like I've got to find a new one, or so forth. We were just kind of talking at the beginning here, or sound checking. Just you were talking about how first off, your office is moved. Yes. Right. Yep. So you maybe talk about, before we get into kind of the shifts you made in like personnel and how that's all worked. Maybe talk about that, kind of what happened, what precipitated as a business owner in the early days of, you know, the shutdowns and COVID-19, and you're in Santa Clara County. So we were, this is a crazy spot. Still are. Yeah. It still is. It was a hot spot. I mean, we were probably one of the most, you know, restrictive counties in the entire state. That may not be the case right now, but it certainly was for a very long time. Maybe talk about how it impacted you and the things you had to do, you know, to survive. Yeah. I mean, I think just like everyone else in this area, or, you know, across the United States, I mean, where, you know, for that short period of time, everyone was in some degree of lockdown, and then we just continued, you know, here. And because, you know, just like you guys were more hands-on, you know, so it does make it a little bit tougher to be like, all right, how do we do these Zoom calls? How do we transition over to a Zoom treatment, you know, if that's the case? And the good part for us is, you know, we could do a lot of corrective exercise and that type of, you know, stuff. So that wasn't new to your clients because you'd already been doing it. So we'd already been doing all that. So that made things easier and an easier transition for us. But yeah, I mean, our lease was up in January of this past year. And so, you know, with having to let go employees, it was pretty much just myself, and, you know, Baker was in there for 2 days a week. So for $8,000 a month, you know, I'm like, that doesn't add up. It doesn't add up, you know, and I'm going to keep digging myself a hole, you know, and that doesn't do me good. Not knowing what this thing is going to look like. Yeah. So we decided to, you know, not, you know, re-sign. And so our friend of mine, you know, he owned a gym, and so we went in and built out half his gym. So we've got a few offices inside there, and, you know, it's like a transition, you know, and so that's a tough part because I'd been in my location for 10 years, you know, and it's like home, right? Right. You go from a 3,500 square foot office down to a 1,200 square foot, you know, space, and expect it to work. And so we, you know, got rid of a lot of stuff, and again, still trying to just manage and figure out how does this office work, and how is it going to benefit us? And then what are the little nuances inside the office? And, you know, it's not a very busy, you know, training gym, which is nice, you know, so they have some classes in the evening time. So it gets a little bit noisy because we have more of an open room concept, or open ceiling concept, you know, and, but yeah, it's transition, you know, and you take it as it comes, and you just keep rolling and figure it out and just keep rolling. Yeah. I think, you know, those that made it through to the other side, that's what they had to do. You mentioned sort of, kind of force multiplying the staff or the talent that you had, because you're losing staff, right? You're having to lay people off. But so, you know, I have to bring people back on, and I have to do this very strategically, right? It's very strategically, maybe that might not be a proper term, but you have to do it strategically. Yes. I don't know if you're trying but it's just got to be strategic, because I can only hire one person at a time. So and then I've got this other person that I know is going to be on board. how do you divide up responsibilities, roles? How does it work now versus maybe how it worked before?
Tougher now just because, Tani, who was like my work wife, of 9 years,
Yep.
I mean, she left in March. So that puts it all back onto me, and, our new front desk, it's like, I can't give her the same responsibilities that Tani had for 9 years.
Skills,
right.
The wisdom, the experience, the relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of that now falls back onto me, so it is a lot more like time management on my end and trying to figure out the ins and outs of where I could just let her do, a lot of the business stuff as well. And now it's back onto me again, so it is trying to figure out, all right, how can I make this business more streamlined, to make those processes a lot easier, where I don't have to worry about my front desk doing it anymore, because it is streamlined. It's, it's simple. We have a pretty simple, check-in, process now, and we switched our scheduling system. And so we did a lot of different changes, back in January, February, March, and which I think will definitely get easier as the world here in the county starts to open up, as well.
Right. I mean, those are infrastructure challenges and changes. And you look back, it's like it might have seemed like forever ago when you first did it. And it was probably a nightmare, and now it feels more normal.
Right.
And it has been sort of a short period of time in the big scheme of things. You've been at this 15 years, but having to make those shifts and those changes in with the unknown, and this changing landscape and all that stuff all at one time, that's really where the solid business owners have come out to the other side. And I think the smart ones are also doing all of this with a different outlook on the future of, I need to protect myself from this kind of thing in the future somehow. And so I need an insurance policy of some kind. And that doesn't mean what's my backup plan.
Right.
The backup plan is you're going out of business.
Right.
That's you're either in or you're out. Right. And so you had to go all in. And I mean, we talked about this when I came over to visit the spot, which is fantastic, by the way. While I know you miss your old spot, and I miss it too. And some of the cool stuff that you had and toys and space that you had, there's nothing that at your new place that you can't provide.
No, not at all.
It's just, you're doing it. It just looks different, right?
It's a different level.
And that change is tough for people to accept sometimes. And so you're also dealing with that energy, right? From yourself, your employees, or, the people around you, your clients, and all those kind of things. So there's all of that. But the point of that being is setting yourself up for the future, understanding that change it's probably going to happen again, but how can we minimize the impact of these kinds of things in the future? So, and that rule book or that game plan is being continually written as we speak.
Or rewritten all the time.
Yeah, you can't. There is no playbook for this thing.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. Like, I mean, you look at us here, but then you go to like my friends out in Austin, Texas. Where, I mean, they're absolutely crushing it. And you can go to other areas that maybe, getting hammered like we are here. So it was very weird just talking to other colleagues and friends and be like, yeah, we're getting hammered, but we're crushing over here. And it's like,
what's the best practice that I should be following, right? Again, it goes back to problem solving with your clients and their particular issue. Everybody's particular circumstance is different. And so their response to this is going to be different. And then what are the internal things that we can control, and then what are the external things that we can't control? So I think that leads me to the next question, which is with regard to, patients and, I guess the market, but particularly your clients and patients, and how are they approaching their health and fitness differently, or their health and wellness differently now, if any? Are they making shifts in what they're doing and how they're doing it versus before all of this?
I think early on, yes. I mean, we'd like to think that they're taking their health a lot more serious, but I mean, when it comes down to it, I don't think it is at all, and it's an easy out to go in and, take this pill, take that pill, get this vaccine, don't get that vaccine, whatever it is. Right. So they're just different answers for people. What I do notice is people are talking about doing things more. Now, whether or not they're actually doing them more or not, or they're just telling us that because they know that's what we're expecting them to do.
Too soon to tell.
It's too soon to tell because, again, I haven't seen that change yet, and, when people say, I want to be a runner. Perfect. What have you done? I just go out and I go run.
Yeah.
okay, well, what have you done?
What's the plan?
Right. There is no plan for you to be a better runner right now. And this is why you're in here broken, So it's like, we have to figure out what that game plan is for you. And they talk about, all right, here's what we need you to do. And they come back again. Well, this still hurts. Well, what have you done? Well, I haven't had time. But you made time to go run when you knew you were broken, but you didn't have time to do what I gave you so you could be unbroken. Like, I don't understand that philosophy.
Yeah, it's kind of is that a positive thing?
Right.
Or is it a negative thing? Again, like, I'm more aware that I should be doing something else or something different.
Right.
And so I'm going to go do that. And so they made a decision to do it. But unwittingly, they're potentially putting themselves in a worse position because of the approach they're taking to it. Yeah, like, I don't know if that's positive or not. I have to be really honest with you. I hear and see the same things in the gym. At the same time, it's like, I'm really doing it this time. Are you?
Yeah, right.
Cool. Well, then show me. But what I'm seeing is, I shared this with you before. Like, I'm plus members for pre-COVID, members and clients, but my revenue per member is down, and that's not because they're spending, like, we've lowered prices or they're not buying the same packages. We have a dual model here. We run a membership model as well as a pay-as-you-go model, depending on what they do. So it's their frequency of trainings down.
Right.
They're just not coming in as often. And it's kind of the attitude, going back to mindset, is, no, I know I should be doing. So these are intelligent people, by the way. I mean, they're great. There's like, I'm doing it, but they don't maybe realize I'm doing it less, or I'm just going to take it easy here or whatever. And look, there's nothing wrong with 2 days a week.
Yeah.
We just know, and this is facts for most people, 3 days is going to be better for you. You know, whether you're training with us or outside of here, we need to get you some more activity during the week, right? 4 days is a game changer. Right. 5 days could be awesome for you if it's appropriate. Right. And we know, stretching much beyond that for most of the people that we work with could be counterproductive.
Sure.
So my point being is, you're talking about it and I hear you, but I don't see it.
Right.
So I don't know if that's positive or isn't positive that they're talking about it. I guess it would be, what do we do with that? But if we could take some positives away, if there are any positives to be gleaned by this, particularly from like the client, adoption of a healthier lifestyle, a greater level of awareness. Maybe I'm giving you the answers I don't know. What are, if there are any positives, what are they to what you've seen clients learn about or take action to get done, or anything similar?
I think let's just go 50-50, right? I think 50% are like, all right, I definitely need to make a change because of all the different issues that we have seen over the past, 2 years. And I need to make my health a priority. So I need to push, whether it's, again, 1 day a week, them trying to make that change. Hey, I'll take 1 day over 0 days anytime, because we can make 1 to 2, right? That's an easy thing. And where the other 50% are, yes, I know I need to make a change, but making a change every single day is way too hard. So I'm just not going to do it at all. And I've seen that in people that come into the office of, like, during, this whole COVID time, I either ramped up my exercise routine crazy, right? Because I wasn't working in the office, and now I could go ride my mountain bike. I could go run. I could go. Yeah.
The pendulum's way over here. Right.
And then the other one was like, I gained my COVID-19, and I got like my freshman 20,
see the same. Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of the in between. It was the, pendulum was on one side or the other side. So it's really trying to then manage, I guess, their psyche, when they're coming in at that point as well, going, okay, we need to calm you down a little bit because you're just running yourself into a wall. And hey, we need to ramp you up just a little bit over here because you're doing absolutely nothing and you're wondering why you're always still broken. Like, oh, I thought if I took time off, time doesn't heal anything for you. That just fixes your pain for a short period of time. Then you go back and
so you overcompensate so you don't feel that anymore. Right.
And go something else is going to something else is going to break. So yeah.
So I have to agree with you 1,000%. That's what I saw too. I saw kind of one end of the spectrum or the other end of the spectrum. And now what I'm seeing is, and what we're seeing, and it's palpable, man. Let's see a lot of folks that are coming in that have either never been involved in a regular exercise program in their life, which is, I'm just gonna say, it's fucking awesome.
Right.
Like, I'm so happy that people are like, I'm taking responsibility. I know I need to do something. I'm not quite sure what that is. I'm really intimidated by this. I know I'm out of shape.
Yeah.
And I know I need to I could be making a difference in my life. And it's not because they want to look better in a bathing suit,
Right.
Or, they have some very specific aesthetic goal that they're really focused on. That's all part of it. I've never met anybody that didn't want to look better naked.
Right.
I just don't.
Yeah.
I haven't, not in my entire life. But my point being is they're coming in because they want to be healthier. They want to feel better.
Yes.
And that is extraordinarily positive to me, that we're seeing kind of this influx of people that are doing it for the first time for themselves. They've traded their health for wealth for a long time, or they're finally over the fear of I need to get started on something, the fear of going back into a gym or being in a public environment or something like that. So I've seen a lot of that, or I'm seeing people that are also coming back like it's been a long time, like way since before COVID, right? Like it's been a long time. And, back in college, I used to do this. I'm like, oh, that was fucking 10 years ago. Like that's
longer.
Right. That's not realistic. We're not going to be back to that now, but they remember what it feels like to feel fit, at least feel fit, and what they, kind of, there's an association to it. So they're looking to get at some level of fit again. But to your point, there's also this other end of the spectrum, which I feel is, when I say feel, I just mean, this has been my experience, that is kind of a dangerous prospect, where you have these people that kind of just given up altogether. It makes it harder to kind of jump back in. And what things are they going to have to deal with or overcome in order to get kind of let's say the momentum going, the critical mass rolling for them. And then the people that are just killing themselves right now and driving themselves nuts, which provides more business for a guy like you and whatever else. But and where are they going for their resources, and why are they making those decisions? What's driving that kind of behavior is what we're starting to uncover. And I think there's a lot of things, but fear is one of those things. Boredom is another. Trading one kind of addiction, if you will, to something to another, whether it's addiction to food or drugs or whatever, and they're trading for exercise, and they're just going all in on that now, or whatever it is. There's this stuff going on, but it is positive that people are making these decisions to do something different. I don't know how long it takes, man, before they break. They have to come see us, or they get to a point where like, okay, that's it. I have to go. I have to start something now. But again, positive, not positive. I think the jury's still out. Too soon to tell for sure.
I would like to give people the benefit of the doubt,
Me too. I always want to do that.
Right. But again, it goes back to show me.
Yeah.
Show me that you were going to do what you need to do. Cause if not, then I always tell them I'm going to hold you more accountable. And that means I get to see you more often. Right. Yeah. I can do that. No problem.
And I think I'm frustrated by we're not hearing messaging, really from anybody other than, a lot of the industry, particularly the fitness industry, just about how to maybe do that. Right. How to kind of get back into it. I'm very frustrated by that. Like there's not a lot of, here's some things you could do to be healthier. And
there's no money in healthcare.
I got it. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we're not.
Right.
I'm frustrated by it, and I think a lot of people are too. And, I'm sure you and I could go deep into the rabbit hole on a lot of this stuff, but as we're going through it, I think, what's it going to take for, and I'll just keep it local.
Yeah.
What's it going to take for the American people, right? To wake up to this shit ain't normal. Like we're in really poor condition right now. We're in really poor condition mentally, physically, emotionally, culturally. Like we're in a really bad spot right now. What's it going to take? Let's just say, and those are all combined with total health and wellness.
Right.
What's it going to take for people to kind of wake up and make the change?
I think getting out of the true sense of whatever we perceive as our healthcare model, right? Because our healthcare model is, people, I want to use my health insurance. Okay, but when you use your car insurance, does that change your oil for you too, and flip your tires for you?
Great analogy.
Right? It doesn't do that, but yet we hold our healthcare insurance to such a high standard, but it doesn't give us healthcare, right? It just, all it does is it provides you with becoming more sick, right? And I get that there's people out there that need certain medication stuff. I have nothing against any of that type of stuff,
right?
But what got you there to begin with, right? You know, was it your bad decisions in the past? If it was, then hey, let's try and right that ship. But you have to start somewhere. And I think because we live in a society right now that everything is given to you, right? We really don't have to work for food anymore. We don't have to work for water anymore. We don't have to hike to go do something. We can go to McDonald's and drive through and they give you your meat, you know, I mean, if it's meat, you know, so, I mean, it's, yeah, our healthcare system, I think, is truly broken, you know, and you're seeing a massive divide, I think, in that right now, you know, and so because of that, where's the voices going to be, you know, and whether it's social media as well, that's drowning certain voices out. I mean, again, I think that's a bad thing. And whatever their model is or their narrative is at the time, that's what's sort of going to be driven because that's what most people are going to hear, which is, again, the unfortunate thing.
So I think you just kind of hit like, where does it, what do we have to do as a collective us? But then where does it start? And it starts with recognizing that the healthcare system isn't the answer.
No.
So if it's not the answer, let's say people do come to, hey, I got to stop being, I think the word is dependency. Right. I don't know if you'd agree or not. Like we become dependent, you know, for too much. And again, too much is vague, but particularly on the healthcare side for the reasons that you just pointed out. So if that's where we recognize and that's where we start, how can we, right? And when I say we, I mean the collective fitness, healthcare, health practitioners, how can we help? How can we help support, right, the coming out the other side of this? What are the things we need to do? I
think the education goes back to education, right? How do we educate our clients, you know, our family members, our friends, or whatever it is, that there are better options that are out there without telling them, right? Because when we tell someone that, they're going to turn and look the other way because it's like you're being force-fed, right? Versus, hey, you know, look at this, look at this, look at this, you know, give them both sides of the fence, right? You know, be like, hey, look it on this side and look it on this side. You make your informed decision based on the information you have. But if you're always looking just to the right, you're never going to see what's potentially on the left, right? And it doesn't mean that both sides are right and wrong, but there is something in the middle, right? And you have to figure that out, you know, and you have to make a conscious, I think, choice on your own. Like, is this the right way or is this the wrong way? Or is this the right information? Is this the wrong information? If it's wrong, why? If it's right, why?
For you.
Right, for you. Yeah. You know, I mean, our kids right now, it's like we talk about with food. I just use a simple analogy. Is it gas or is it diesel? Right? Simple.
Because if you're a gas engine, you put that diesel in there.
Right. You know, and so they'll ask, is it gas or is it diesel? And I'll make them try and explain it. You know, you tell me why you think it's one or the other. Because if I keep telling you what it is, right, you don't understand it. But if you can explain it to me, then I know you understand it, you know.
Is it wrong that some people run on diesel, though?
Not at all. Not at all if you have a diesel engine.
Exactly right.
Right.
So I think it goes back. It's interesting. That's pretty powerful, actually, what you just said right there, and that is providing the education. And I think the next step right there is, and you sort of painted the picture of the diversity of options that people have to do the things that they need to do that's right for them. Right. And that there aren't just two choices. Yeah. And it just seems to be like that's all that's being presented in front of people with many, many things. Right. Which is this, there's this way or there's that way. Right. And if you pick this, then it absolutely means that you 100% don't agree with that. Right. And it's starting to trend that way in fitness when we start to look at nutrition or things like, you know, keto or carnivore or vegan or whatever it happens to be. That's how you can maybe narrow it down. But, you know, people are expected to I have this choice or this choice, and I cannot make the wrong choice here. I have to make the right choice. And also understanding that when I make this choice, I can't say that I was wrong. Right. Like there can't be any humility in that choice. Like I can't go try that for a little while to maybe understand it a little bit more for myself. Right. Before I make the decision, like, oh, this was maybe not the right choice for me. Right. And be open to those conversations, be open to that experimentation and whatever. But yeah, there's such a diversity and nobody's talking about that. No. Like it's always, this is right. This is the only way. If you're not doing it this way, you're doing it wrong. Right. That just throws such a divide in what it is that we should be doing as again, I say a collective industry, but I just say anybody that's in the health, wellness, fitness realm can't we just all get along? I mean, that's the line, right? I mean, we're just beating one another up. Right. It's just nothing but shit talking, and you're right, I'm wrong. Yeah. So again, like, where do we start? That's it. It's education. It's providing options. It's making those options accessible. Right. And I think more than, incentivizing people just with, hey, you're going to be healthier when you do this. For me, I think there could be some incentivization with regard to when you are healthy, right? When you do make these good decisions, not only do you live longer, right, not only do you live more vibrantly, right, not only do you have less issues in life, but there could be some financial incentive there, to do that. Like, insurance costs you less money, going back to the broken insurance system, right? Or, there could be a tax advantage or something like that. But I'm not saying that should be even, I want to be clear. Like, I'm not saying that should be the same everywhere. No. Right? I think
because every human is different.
Exactly right. So there should be this diversity, and I think a tolerance for that needs to be learned, that just because, this region of the United States, which is heavily, let's say, influenced by certain cultures, by certain socioeconomic, I'll use the word class, right, or whatnot. That doesn't necessarily mean that what's good for them over there from a health and wellness, nutrition, healthcare perspective should be the same as it is over here, right? Wherever the over here is. And I think that's the kind of the roots of where we are as what we were built on as a nation. Like, we think maybe we could get back to that. It's just like recognizing, like, there isn't a one size fits all here. No. And there may be certain areas and certain groups of people that recognize that this might be the better solution for them. Why aren't we giving them that as an option and encouraging them to take advantage of it and providing the resources to do that?
Provide it for them.
Yeah. Just,
versus give it to them.
Versus giving or telling them, like, you have to do it this way.
Because they still didn't learn anything. They're just, all right, well, they told me to do it, so I'm going to go do it, thus I follow, or, I read just this one thing and all right, that's what I'm going to go do, versus what are my options to learning?
I think we're learning in spades right now how much damage that kind of mindset or that kind of thinking is created. All right. So on that, because we don't necessarily have all this figured out right now, give me your top 3 things somebody could do today. Like, they could get done listening to this podcast and they could start implementing these things today to have a significant impact on their health and their wellness starting today, no matter who they are, like what particular condition they may have. And I know that could be broad, but what are your top 3?
Change your diet, again, and I don't care what diet that is, but just try and eat healthier, whatever that is to you right now. And so if you can make better food options, right, that right there is going to make your internal world, so much better. Go out and move more, right? As you move more, like, I'll tell people, I want you to swing your arms. I want you to walk differently, cross, long, whatever that movement might be. If you go for a walk or whatever it is, but go for multiple walks throughout the day. They don't have to be long walks, right? They could be 5 minutes. They could be 10 minutes. They could be just 2 minutes around the house, but give yourself some like micro breaks throughout the day and go move more. Right. And then make sure you get good sleep, right? If your sleep is garbage, I mean, people are like, oh, I'm going to wait for the weekend and I'm going to sleep in so I can, get more sleep. I'm like, you didn't make up more sleep on a Friday night because you sucked in your sleep on Thursday night, right? The body doesn't work that way. Right. So I think just in those 3 things, if you're moving more, if you're sleeping better and you're eating healthier, your entire environment is going to be different. Right. Mindset's going to be different, right? Your body's ability to do things is going to be different, and then whatever that goal is, I think outside of those 3 things, now we cater your goal to you, but at least you've got 3 foundational things going first. That's going to make you a better human.
Right. I don't think there's a health, wellness, fitness practitioner, coach out there that would argue any of those points. Yeah. I mean, everybody who's from a dietary perspective, I think everybody on the planet could go, yes, there's something in my routine, my dietary routine or intake right now that I absolutely now know is probably not the best for me. I could make an adjustment to. Right. So simple. Drink more water. Right. Eat more vegetables or, eat whatever, increase my protein. Oh, there's so many things you could do within that. So I'm just bringing those up as points. The second part is movement is medicine, no doubt about it. And there's obviously very biased there, but I've just watched it change people's lives.
Yep.
So I couldn't agree with you more there. And the sleep piece, I mean, come on, man. Like, follow the science.
Right.
You know, I guess if that's got to be the line, like follow the science. But anybody that's just had a few nights of poor sleep can tell you how messed up you become as a human being when you're sleep deprived. It impacts your hormones, it impacts your mood, it impacts your digestion, it impacts your performance, it impacts your, you know, your how your brain works. Let's be honest. So it's great. I mean, I don't know why this isn't coming. Why is this not more mainstream? Why do you have to hear it from Justin Brink, and why is it not out there? I don't know, but I think it was perfect, man. I agree with you 100%. Very enlightening. Share with me as we close up here, like, what's the next thing on your agenda? What are you going to learn next, man?
Well, we just hosted a DNS 2 weeks ago, which is the dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, you know. And
I was out of town. I was in Austin, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So I had a crazy weekend, you know, because typically this is the first one that I've taken the course in the past, actually numerous courses from it, and I'm hosting it, but just life was nuts over that weekend, and I didn't even get to go to the class. And so that was the very first one in 15 years out of all the ones that I've hosted and that I've gone to. Well, if I go to, I'm going to it, but the ones that I've hosted that I did not get to attend because of kids things. You know, so driving to soccer, going to pictures, doing all these things, and all of a sudden it was like, wow, all right, you know, because I remember talking to Kara that night, and I was like, this is the very first one that I did not go to, you know.
Disappointing.
It was, right?
But the flip side is the things that you're doing are, right?
Yes. So we've got Warren Hammer coming in middle of January for a Stecco, like fascial, you know, manipulation course. That's a 3-day course in January. We have, it was supposed to be in 2 weeks, Dr. Giovanni Bonfanti. So he's a DO out of Italy. Like a master, you know, manipulator.
I know he's all over YouTube,
right? Yep. And so
loves the Rocktape, by the way.
We have him coming out. It's now August 8, 9, and 10 of 2022. So he'll be out, you know, teaching a 3-day like master course, you know, for, you know, MDs, DOs, PTs, you know, chiros, that type of stuff. So, you know, definitely looking forward to that one. But yeah, that's sort of the quick and the dirty right now.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, you're just providing opportunities for both yourself and for the people around you. And how many people does that impact? Right. You know, down the road. Yeah, cool. I'm gonna have to check out the what's coming on down the pipe. Yeah. If people want to find out more about that, more about you, maybe make an office visit, have a chat, write an email, get some more wisdom from you. Where do they go, man? How do they find you?
They can go to our webpage, Premier Spine and Sport. Same thing on Instagram, or, you know, Dr. Justin Brink, you know, Instagram as well. So I'm always, you know, just posting things on either or. And so anytime you can DM me or email me, whatever you want. And I typically get back to everyone. So, yeah,
it's interesting, like to back that up just with your social media. What I see is different about you, which I really like, is you're posting the movement stuff. Right. It's not about it's not about pain. No, it's not about overcoming pain. Yep. What you're posting is the preventative. Right. Like, how do you stay out of my office? Right. Or how do you enhance what it is that I may be helping you with inside the office, outside the office? It might sound very counterintuitive going back to those new young chiros or even chiros out there are struggling right now. Maybe check out Justin's Insta. And,
I mean, that's really what my philosophy is when I tell people, I'm like, my goal is to never see you again. Yeah. If I educate you correctly and you do what you're supposed to do, like, I shouldn't have to see you until you hurt something else again in the future, which inevitably we're all going to do, you know, but I'm good with that. Come back in, let's fix you, and let's send you back out and go enjoy the world.
Well, I certainly hope I see you again soon, man. It's been too long. I really appreciate you coming down and spending time.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me on.
This was fun. Yeah, it was awesome. We got to put together another event here, and I'm bringing the crew.
Sure.
Share, debate, challenge one another. You know, it's fun. Thanks for being here with me, man.
Yeah.
Best of luck to you going forward. And,
you as well.
And again, thanks very much.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Iron Sights. If you enjoyed our conversation, you can support our mission by hitting the subscribe button, leaving a review, and sharing the podcast with a friend. I'll see you on the next episode.